Carrying is a mechanic that a lot of Roblox games utilize, from obbies to hardcore MMOs. Carrying is definitely up there in terms of the most common mechanics utilized in the platform. And so I thought I'd help you out in case you've been struggling trying to get this right, or maybe you just don't have any idea of how this is done. So in this one, I'll explain a couple of features and things you have to take into account about the engine when creating this system, and I'll also hop into Studio with you to do all of this. Also, if you want more tutorials of commonly used systems in Roblox, let me know in the comments and maybe I'll make a tutorial about it next. This said, let's start the video that you actually came here to watch. Alright, so creating a carry system is not complicated at all as long as you keep in mind what I'll be explaining in this first part of the video. So you could skip to the part where I just start explaining the script. Hell, I might even leave you the exact timestamp on the screen for that.
No.
But if you miss on the things that I'm about to tell you, you might wish you didn't in the future. Besides, at the end of this video, I'll give you a little secret that you'll probably like if you're a beginner, so if I were you, I would stay, but that's just me though. Anyway, as I said, creating a carry system is easy as long as you know how to do one thing, and that one thing is how to deal with physics in the engine. That's something that at least I didn't know how to deal with when I first attempted to do a carry system. I remember the first time I tried this, I wasn't using any video guides or anything like that, and I ran into a couple of problems while making this system. We will now talk about them and how to fix them. So when you attach two humanoids with a world, you're bound to find some physical behavior changes because A, you're attaching something with mass, aka weight, on top of another moving thing with mass. You always want to keep in mind that even though it's just a simulation, the Roblox engine by default comes with physics, and that means that if you stack weight onto a player, not only will they move slower, but also they might even fall, not move at all in some circumstances, or any other physics related problem caused because of mass. And to solve this, you're gonna want to make every part of the player that's being carried massless, as well as making the humanoid property platform stand equal to false. Massless removes the weight of the player, and platform stand false puts the player in a freefall state and prevents the player from moving. And that's the end of the first problem. The second problem you might face when attempting to make a carry system is a misplacement of the player that's being carried in relation to the player that is supposed to be doing the carrying. This took me a while to understand how to fix because I'm just dumb like that and I'm down to my last brain cell. The reason why this happens is mainly because of replication or the way you set up your script. If the problem is replication, then you probably just forgot to set platform stand equal to false. Otherwise, you're gonna have to check your script and verify that the line where you determine the end C frame of the player that's being carried is as close as possible to the line where you actually are moving the carried player. And also make sure that there aren't any weights or any loops that might cause any significant delays. And that's the end of the second problem. I'd say that the most common one is the first one. If you take care of the first one and you're careful with your scripting, you shouldn't run into any issues. Now that we finally got that out of the way, I'll hop into Studio and show you how I make carry systems. Before I start covering anything, remember that you have access to this whole place in the description, so if you want to follow what I'm doing, you can just go and download the place I'm using. So in here, you're gonna need 5 things: a local script to handle input detection, which I'll cover briefly, a server script to handle the carrying, a remote event for the server to know when to carry, and 2 animations, one for the person that's being carried and one for the person that will be carrying him. The last 3 things I just put in replicated storage. Obviously, in a real game, you might be organizing all of this differently, but for the sake of the tutorial, I'm just gonna leave it like this. So I'm gonna show you the input manager real quick. I'm not gonna explain it with detail since input management is something that you should already know. All I did here was make it so that when the player presses the V key, then the carry remote event gets fired to the server. Now to what you actually came here for, where the carrying actually happens, the server script. So you want to create a server script for this one and get the carry remote event first thing in your script. After that, you get the 2 animations. Down here, you see the server receiving the carry remote event. We want to do that so we can do hit detection exactly when the player presses the key. So whenever the player presses the key, the code inside this will run. I'm going to briefly explain the hit detection since some people might not know that, but this is something that you should probably know by now. You receive the remote event here. Make sure to have an argument for the player that sent the signal, and through that, we get the player's character and the player's humanoid root part. Now, for this next part, I'm just creating some variables for the hitbox. I created a variable for the size of the hitbox, another one for the C-frame of the hitbox, and another one for its overlap parameters. If you're kinda new, you might not know what this is, but in simple terms, this gives the hitbox the ability to ignore certain objects when doing the hit detection. This is good because we don't want it to detect the character that's performing the hit detection, right? And you might be wondering, why do we create a hitbox? Well, we need to detect if the player that you're trying to actually pick up is near you, and the way you do that is through a hitbox. Now back to what I was saying. After I got those 3 variables, I used the get part bouncing box spatial query with the aforementioned variables to create the hitbox and get any parts that might have been inside it. So anything that it caught in the hitbox is gonna be in a list inside the variable hitbox result. Once you do that, all you have to do is loop through the objects in the hitbox result list. What's this char's hit variable, you might be asking? It's something we're gonna use to determine which characters we've already assessed in the hit detection. We need this since the hit detection gets all the parts caught in a box. We'll more likely get more than one body part of a player's character when we do this, but when iterating, we only wanted to run the code for the carry once, right? How do we do this? When iterating, we add a condition here, and table.find char's hit, human.parent. What table.find does is return the index of whatever we provide, if it finds it, that is. If it doesn't find it, then it just returns nil. And what we're saying with this condition basically is, if it doesn't find it in the list, then okay, proceed. And that's when we call our carry function, which is up here. Alright, so you might be confused with the names I'm using for the parameters. We got 2 parameters here. We got Torichar and we got Ukachar. Torichar is the character performing the action, meaning the character that will be carrying the other character. Ukachar is the character receiving the action, so the character that is being carried. Why did I name it like this? I'm not gonna tell you, but if you figure it out, then I don't know, you might be him. Take your guess in the comments. Alright, so first thing we gotta do is get the humanoid root part, the humanoid, and the animator of both Tori and Uke in different variables. Then we create the animation tracks for the animations we made and we play them. And now we're gonna make the player that's being carried maskless and platform stand true. So first we just make Uke humanoid's platform stand equal to true. Now we loop through Ukachar's descendants, and if what we're looping is a base part, then we'll make the maskless property of said base part equal to false. And this pretty much prepares the opponent for being carried. Next, we position the opponent properly in relation to the player that's gonna be carrying him. We modify the C-frame property for that, multiply Tori humanoid root part by some amount that's probably gonna be similar to this one. Why do I say similar? Because it might change depending on the animation, size of characters, etc. So you might want to experiment a little bit with this to get it perfect. And lastly, we just weld the 2 humanoid root parts together. We create a weld for that, make part 0 Tori humanoid root part and part 1 Uke humanoid root part. Rename the weld instance if you want and parent the weld to the humanoid root part on Tori. And that should be all of it. Let's go ahead and test it now. We walk out to the dummy, press V, and now we're carrying him and there's no weird behaviors. We can jump with it, we can speed up and do whatever and he'll stay in place. How to stop carrying him? I'm gonna let you figure that one out. I can't give you all the answers, come on now. Plus, the vid's getting low-key long. But this is the base system I use for any sort of grab system. The thing that I said I was going to reveal at the beginning of the video is just that this same method that I use to carry a character is the same method you can use to grab a character to initiate any sort of grab skill. I know it's not a big reveal and anyone with a couple of brain cells probably figured it out on their own. But since I know I wouldn't have realized it on my own, then I guess I'm just saying it now. So yeah. Hopefully this helped you out, and with all of this being said, keep leveling up bro, be safe, and I'll see you when I see you. Peace.